All right. Welcome back to the OG Rivals podcast. I am one of your hosts, Miles Teddick. It is a lovely Sunday evening after we've had our second week of preseason football. Plenty to talk about. I think certainly no shortage of knee jerk reactions on hand, both from the Twitterverse and from our fandom here. So very excited to jump in and get going here. Joined by my co-host Sir Miguel Prado.
Hey y'all, this is Miguel Prado and Miles. Are we done with underreactions? Are we done with them officially?
I can't abandon underreactions right now because I think there are too many knee jerk reactions going on here with,
Yeah,
again, let's count our sample size, two
yeah.
preseason games where a lot of the full-time starters are not playing. So again, I think we all need to, calm her down a little, if I can say that. Just let's just pump the brakes, underreact where we can,
Yeah.
and see what needs to be maybe overreacted. There might be some necessary overreactions. Let's not count everything out here.
Let's just bring it. And with bringing it, remind everybody that if you do like the OG podcast, the OG rivalry podcast, to please follow us, subscribe on YouTube. We're on Spotify. Don't forget to like or spike that like button. Leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate.
Right on. And I will jump in there and say today I am rocking our sponsors gear here with the hoodie from Life Leaf Remedies. You guys, if you're looking for natural remedies, we want you to feel better today. That's why we have this up there. We're going to have it everywhere. That is the goal, the mission, the purpose. It's for you to feel better today. We are making effective natural remedies by combining cannabinoids like CBD, which a lot of you are familiar with, and others like CBG, CBN, CBDA, and more, with natural vitamins, minerals, even fungi. Shout out to the mushrooms. A lot of cool stuff happening in that community. We are here to help you take better care of yourself and your family. Don't forget, right now through the end of August, every subscription order gets a free sample of our immune armor caps because those back to school bugs are out to get you, whether you have kids or not. They are coming. So y'all armor up some immune armor capsules when you subscribe with us today, and check us out at lifeleafremedies.com. Feel better today, y'all. All right, man. Let's jump in here. First, we have to do our proper host introductions, right? Why don't you lead us off, man? I don't want to be the one jumping in there doing that first. Give us your
Yeah.
fandom background, Sir Bears fan.
Absolutely. I think it's worth with our concept here to give a little bit more color. So you and I actually had the privilege of spending many moons. We worked together for many years, and in that environment of working together, we realized that we talk a lot of shit. And so, with that being said, obviously the water cooler, me being a Bears fan, you being a Packers fan, it was just the perfect combination for great water cooler moments. And so we decided, why not bring that to life, right? Why not bring that to this platform where we can come together and give our perspective insights as fans? Always want to make sure that I'm very clear in communicating that, right? Just giving a
We
fan's
are not
perspective.
claiming to be experts. Disclaimer.
No, no, no. Do we do this for a living? No. But are we
No.
fans? Yes. We're
Yes.
fans of our teams, respectively. I am a Chicago Bears fan up here representing, and then obviously in the heart as well. But Miles, you're on the other side of that spectrum, right? When we're talking about Bear fans.
Oh yeah, man. The exact opposite side of that spectrum. As a Packers fan, of course. No, and I love it. That's why we've created this podcast, man. Is that banter is happening everywhere. It's happening all over the place. If it happens in Dallas, Texas on a regular basis, I know in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in Chicago, Illinois, in all the surrounding suburbs and towns across the Midwest where our teams are very prevalent. I know that banter's happening, and dadgummit, it's about time that two people brought it to the podcast verse. So we're doing that, and we are fans. We love our teams dearly. We do not claim to be experts, although we might have some, some valuable perspective to throw out there every now and then. Watch out for the nuggets; they happen here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd like to
That's
think so, right?
he's like, yeah, we're kind of smart.
It's
No, so,
up for
but I was
debate.
born into the fandom, man. My grandfather played for the Packers. He is in the Packer Hall of Fame. That is Daryl Teddick. He wore number 66 before Ray Nitschke. He got to play with several championship players that ended up playing for Lombardi. So there was a lot in my blood here that drove me to be a Packers fan, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Even though I grew up in Dallas, Texas, so it's a lot of fun. I love the back and forth with you and with these other fans that we got out there. At least the ones that know what they're talking about. So Vikings fans, you guys are kind of excluded from that. Y'all never know what you're talking
Oof.
about. So.
Oof.
Um, but and Detroit fans, y'all are still Detroit fans, so I mean, it's been
Oof.
tough years, but anyway, this isn't the pick on everybody segment. Um, just getting to know our fandom, giving you guys that description of who we are, why the heck we're talking into these microphones on a regular basis, and hopefully gracing your speakers here and there. But yeah, and of course, talk about us at your next tailgate because I'm sure we're going to say something outrageous that is worth arguing about, and that is kind of the goal. Not in like a Skip Bayless kind of way because that guy just spits nonsense, but like more of like a hey, maybe we should think of it this way, and
Yeah.
we'll see what we can come up with. But when we're gonna jump right in here with a segment that we picked up last week, I think that certainly deserves some more time here this week with our stock up, stock down for both teams, Chicago and Green Bay. I'm gonna jump out there this week first, and Green Bay got the win, so it's an obvious stock up. I think there were a lot of good things that came out of it. Number one, Jordan Love was throwing some darts. I'm not gonna overreact to a fantastic throw that ended up being an incompletion, but I will say that anybody who's been watching Jordan Love over the last couple of years, with any kind of hope that he's the future for the Packers or just an open mind at the very least, you saw big improvement. At the very least, you saw big improvement. You saw, and I'm not gonna bring coach quotes into it. What you saw as a fan, you saw a guy who was throwing the ball more confidently than he has in the past. You talked about the eye test. He looked like he had a lot of composure. There were a lot of throws that he made that you want to see a guy make. So I was very excited. He's stock up. I'm not going to go too deep into that because there's still a lot we need to see from Jordan Love. I would like to see him with a few more of the starting weapons at his disposal. Would like to see what happens, maybe in that third preseason game. That's more of a dress rehearsal. If he gets a little bit more pressure from a starting defense, we'll see. So there's a lot to be seen, but stock is certainly up. No longer stock neutral on Jordan Love. We can make that official. Um, Next stock up. Very excited about Kingsley Enagbare. Went in on the pronunciation on that one, so if that was incorrect, it's the internet's fault. I did make an attempt. Um, Fifth round pick out of South Carolina. Guy is looking the part. Like he's wearing 55, and he looks kind of like the last guy that wore 55 with less dreadlocks. But he looks explosive. He looks hungry when he's chasing the quarterback. There was a lot of a lot of hustle plays out there that you want to see from a guy who's trying to earn a job and really probably fight for some playing time this season. So from a pass rush group that needs some depth, he's certainly showing some promise there. Stock up on Kingsley Enagbare, and the D line depth in general is incredibly strong. Stock up, and I want to give one shout out to our guy Isaiah McDuffie. I believe he's a second year guy now, but out of Boston College. But he's making some plays. He's been making his presence known in the first two preseason games, and he made one play in particular that I thought was quite savvy, where he used one of the Saints linemen to push one of the other Saints, the guy who was running the ball out of bounds. So I thought it was pretty savvy. Hoping he wasn't responsible for blowing that play that had the ball carrier running downfield, but I saw what I saw. Again, fan perspective. Final stock up would be Tyler Goodson. Again, you're talking about a guy who could be fighting for an RB3 spot, some significant playing time when it comes to special teams and some of the things that they ask your third running back to do. So he's been really consistent throughout the preseason. He's gotten some pretty heavy looks. So you like to see that consistency from a guy like that is really good. So yeah, and then jumping into stock down for us, man, Tyler Davis, very unfortunate. This guy, I don't know, he's just making a lot of mistakes. What's going on? Going into the season, there seemed to be a lot of optimism around him. And so I'm not sure what's going on there, but he's had a pretty rough outing. A lot of people on Twitter saying he's not going to make this team. They're not the ones making the cuts, so we'll see. But his stock is certainly down, and secondary depth still kind of struggling. There was a couple of flash plays. Sean Davis, nice fumble recovery, but you want to see, I think, a little bit more promise from CB4 on down. So we'll see. We'll see what goes on. Again, underreactions here. These are just kind of the spot things that have been obvious to me as I watch these first couple preseason games. But I'm more into let's get 4 games into the real season, then we'll get some hot and heavy overreactions. How about that? I'll put a bookmark out there for that.
I like the bookmark, Miles, and I like the change of tone from last week when everybody was stock neutral or stock up. And I say that
I had a couple of them
because
for you.
I appreciate being objective and being critical, right, of our teams. And I say this as a Bears fan who at times it feels like that's my saving grace, is being overcritical of a lot of the moves, the play on the field. But with that said, right, I like this segment as well. It gives us an opportunity, right, to give credit where credit is due, and then also be accountable of some of the play that's on the field. So for Chicago's stock up, man, we've talked about this young man often, Tevin Jenkins. He's slotted into that starting right guard spot, and he has delivered. And this is leaps and bounds from when we started this podcast earlier in the month, when there was a lot of uncertainty and question marks around him, to come in and really salvage what I called in a previous episode was, if he's not starting, right, catastrophic failure for the organization, right? Your second round pick not starting, something went horribly, horribly wrong. And he has ascended that depth chart, and he is solidifying himself as as having a bona fide shot at the starting position, which is where you want him to be at this point in the preseason. So that young man is trending up. Also, Velus Jones Jr., lightning fast. He got an opportunity to finally make an appearance, game time appearance, after having some very minor trainer work and injury that sidelined him. And he comes in and just rips off a 60-yard punt return. Again, don't want to overreact, but when you talk about why he was drafted by the Poles regime and it being primarily speed, right? This was a USC recruit that transferred to the SEC. And one thing that comes out when we talk about film and popping off the film is just the young man's speed. Right. And so that's why I'm trending him up and hoping that he can be a contributor on the offensive side of the ball. I think that right now with Eberflus and Luke Getsy, like you said, preseason's very vanilla. I don't think that it would be wise to really show the scheme or the packages that they would anticipate Velus being in on game day. But I think as a fan, what you can anticipate is probably being one of those that would take the top off of the defense, maybe a quick screen here and there, and then just let him develop into potentially potentially being a contributor on the offensive side of the ball. Besides that, I'm going to go ahead and trend the Bears special teams. One thing that has been pretty I'd say upsetting over the years is special teams on the Bears with everything, right? Not just special teams, but offensive, defense, special teams. All phases of the ball under Matt Nagy were bad. Right. So seeing that
Yeah.
special teams now, you have Trenton Gill. I trended him last week. He's very accurate with that ball. I think that that's going to be impactful when we're talking about field position and making sure that the defense has a short field. Besides that, also obviously Cairo Santos, he's automatic under 40 yards. And I said that episode 1, he's coming out, preseason and just being consistent. I think that's why I want to make sure to give credit where credit's due. And then also the special teams coverage team. I think that they're really going out there and delivering. I think that's part of the Eberflus hit system, right? Is they know every rep is going to be shown and very rigorously graded. And so they're coming out and they're covering punts and they're covering kicks. And I think that that's important. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that in the preseason of just guys just ripping big returns off. And I think that that's where, a lot of these young guys can make the team. So shout out there. And then stock down. I think here's a trend, right? When we talk about fading players, Khalil Herbert, and I don't want to beat up on the guy, but just one play that stood out on Thursday night. He absolutely just missed pass pro, right? And you can't do that. You absolutely cannot do that as a running back. You have one assignment, that's pick up the backer that's coming through or pick up, one of the gaps. And I mean, he just absolutely whiffed on a block. And next thing you know, and this is going to sound familiar, Justin Fields running for his life, right? Want to fade him there. He did have, we're recording this Sunday night, so there was a couple practices since the preseason game. Unfortunately, he did get carted off out of Hallis Hall practice. Reports are that it was not serious. It could have been some cramps, right? So he returns to practice today. So that's a really good thing. But I just wanted to, again, can't stress this enough. You gotta deliver when you're out there on the playing field, especially when you have assignments in pass protection. Sean Coleman.
Hey, so hang on a second. Let me break in here. I feel like there's an opportunity to for a fan to understand another fan's situation here. So, first of all, observation. There seems to be a heavy usage of running backs across the preseason that will not likely see a whole lot of snaps in the regular season. So, me being unaware of kind of how Khalil Herbert fits in, what were his expectations for the Bears this season? Is he RB2?
He's RB2. I don't think that changes. Unfortunately, with his performance
Yikes.
throughout the
Okay.
preseason, he's a solidified 53-man roster, right? I do want to say this, and this is me being objective as a Bears fan. If we're going position group, I'm giving the edge to Green Bay without blinking, without flinching. That running back group is much better up north in Green Bay. That's not to say that the starting running backs, right? I think there's much more alignment there, talent wise, and potential expectations, et cetera. And I say that because David Montgomery hasn't taken one preseason snap, not hurt,
Right.
right? I think he's just that valuable in Luke Getsy's system. And I think the coaching staff and I think the front office is in alignment here. Is they know what they got with David Montgomery, and he is, shelved for that reason. Khalil Herbert's
Well,
getting
and
all the work.
I think that's what's happening. That's what I was saying, kind of across the league. Like Aaron Jones, shelved for the preseason. Alvin Kamara, shelved for the preseason. I'm sure Saquon Barkley. I haven't paid attention to a lot of other teams, but it seems like that's the pattern. So it's sort of the tell. Like, all right, which running backs are the precious ones, the ones that you aren't seeing? Those
Right.
are the good ones.
And with that being said, Miles, with confidence, right? With confidence, I can tell you that I have confidence that David Montgomery picks up that block. in
Right.
in a regular season game, he's making that block, right? And I
Now I
say that
saw
because
that clip. You need RB2 making that block.
you need to, and that's precisely why I'm fading him. And
Right.
I would
Yeah.
take one step further, and I don't want to overreact here because I know that that's a theme of our show, but gosh, it's really tough to not just say Ryan Pace's guys, right? Like Ryan Pace drafted Khalil Herbert. Ryan Pace drafted Daz Newsome, right? Ryan Pace drafted these guys that they're just not delivering how you would want to deliver, right? And not to, because I have Sean Coleman slotted here on the fade as well, but Daz Newsome, I mean, this second week in a row, he's on my
Yeah.
stock down, right? And
Yeah.
so preseason game comes in, has one catch, right? And he's playing from the second quarter into deep into the second half. You have one catch. You have a fumble. Granted, it's not his fault, right? They lost. He muffed a punt where his guy ran into him as he was catching the ball, right? So I don't want to put any of the blame on him on that turnover, right? But it shows up on the stat sheet, right?
Yep.
And you lost the ball. And then beyond that, come again recording Sunday night, there was another practice, right? And what comes out of practice? He's dropping balls. So to me, it's like, come on,
Can't have
Daz.
it.
You can't have that. You can't have that. The last guy I'm fading here, Sean Coleman. For whatever reason, with like you said, preseason and running guys out on the field with the first team that might not necessarily end up there. So he got the nod to start in Seattle against the Seahawks, and he was a liability. On that offensive line, but I think you can start to see a trend here. I mean, I'm fading guys that are just missing assignments on the offensive line. I'm fading offensive guys that are putting balls on the ground, dropping balls, not picking up pass pro. What I will, and I think I did this last time too, is go back to the stock up. I'm going to give a nod to the 2022 draft class of the Chicago Bears. They're showing up, man. Ryan Poles is guy, and I think that's one of those where like you find things to hang your hat on. Golly, Ryan Poles is showing now, and keep in mind in that draft he traded back like 3-4 times. He
Yeah.
started the draft with very little capital because Ryan Pace, shocker, traded it all away. So
It's all gone.
Ryan Poles, and it's tough. Let's call a spade a spade. When you're a fan and you're all amped up for the draft and your team's on the clock, and then you see trade, and you're like, oh man, like we're trading back. You don't like it in the moment, but then you can't grade a draft on draft night. You take a step
Right.
back, emotions are settled, and you look at it, and I mean, hats off to his scouting department and hats off to Ryan Poles, because these guys are coming in, and we've said Braxton Jones's name before on this podcast. He's lining up at starting right tackle, right? And so you talk about when you're lining up with in front of your guys in training camp, it's one of those you don't really know. You don't know if your offense is bad or your defense is good, or your defense is bad and your offense is good, right? Because you're lining up with the same guys. But when you're lining up
Yep.
against number ones on other teams, the expectation is that number one, is there for a reason, and he's making the blocks. He's giving Justin Fields time. He's a mauler on the running blocks. And then you got Dominique Robinson. He's putting pressure on the quarterback. You got Kyle Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. I mean, I can't say enough about Jaquan Brisker. It just gives you hope that this regime in drafting is going to be a whole nother thing to be excited about. Getting some
Yeah.
talented ball players out here. Yeah, those are stock up, stock down, right? If we were investing, we would be selling on the Khalil Herberts of the world, and we'd be buying on the Tevin Jenkins of the world.
Well, I can't argue with you. I mean, it's certainly too early to do that, but I relate to the feeling when we went from Ted Thompson to Brian Gutekunst, um, with the names, man.
That's a Green Bay
Um,
name.
well, he's been there,
That's a
and that's
Wisconsin name.
I don't know where he's actually from, but he's been there for like over 20 years. And that's one of the things that I think gets overlooked a little bit about Goot. It's like the guy has been there for a long time, right? He's seen uh, mistakes get made and had the benefit to learn, like, okay, maybe let's not do it that way when I get my turn up to bat. But yeah, I remember making that transition, and you saw it immediately. He was more aggressive in free agency. He was bringing in different types of players than Ted Thompson brought in as far as drafting and free agents. I mean, getting Adrian Amos was just a godsend. I can't believe y'all let him walk. My goodness, what a favor. Appreciate you, by the way. I need to. What we really need to do, Packer fans, is have a Ryan Pace appreciation podcast, because he, I think, gave the Packers about a 10-year head start over the Bears. Like, I mean, it's like he went in there and internally and intentionally gutted that organization just so
I
the
don't
Packers could just walk right all over you guys for 10 to 15 years.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't think it was intentional. I think Ryan Pace was just over his head as a GM. And with that being said, and here's where I don't blame him, right? Because if that aggressiveness in your team, right, like with trading draft picks and making sure he got Khalil Mack from the
Super
Raiders,
aggressive. He went
very
out there
aggressive,
and
right?
tried to get things. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if those work, we're having a different conversation, right? But hindsight 2020, not enough worked. And I think to your point of setting back the Bears, 10 years, he did that in 5 minutes when he traded up to the second overall pick and took Mitch Trubisky.
Yes.
That
Talk about
alone,
how unnecessary that was. And I think that, to if I can draw that in a comparison to what you said about Ryan Poles and how he navigated the draft, he went and found talent where he saw it was available, right? He didn't go and crap down his leg and say, I gotta get this guy. This is the guy. I gotta get him. This is the only way. It's like, dude, maybe there's another thrower of the football in the draft that you could go after. Now,
yep.
again, hindsight 2020, that's an easy shot to take at the guy. But even in the moment, it's like, man, second overall pick and everything that you had to give up, like Trubisky has to be an Andrew Luck type guy at that point, right?
He
Sorry.
wasn't.
I'm not trying to
He,
like
he but
I'm not trying to
no,
like
but
rip
he
open
but
scabs, man.
no, it's not. Like I said many times on this podcast, I'm dead inside, right? Like as a Bears fan, like look, listen. So with Trubisky, and I think I'm part of the Bears universe that I like Mitch Trubisky. I think Mitch Trubisky's an athlete. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's worth trading up, right? And mortgaging the farm for we were in a good position to draft Pat Mahomes, right? And I think this is a dead horse in Bear universe, right? Is
That's
that
what I
that
was
whole
saying. It's like it's
trade?
not even a shot I need to take right now, but it's
No,
just
it's
it's there.
but listen here, because I think this is worth mentioning with Ryan Pace, because I think with Ryan Pace, so I'll go on record. Matt Nagy, I think, was the worst. He was way over his head. He should never have been. He should never have been a candidate for a head coaching job. And I think he proved that. I think that he proved that he was not an NFL head coach. I think that Ryan Pace, I'm going to say that I don't have that same feeling towards Ryan Pace, right? I think Ryan Pace made some mistakes, and I think that he was in the perfect storm of incompetency when you connect him and Matt Nagy as they're the ones that are, coming together and making decisions for your football team. But that's a direct reflection of the top, right? Of the Ted Phillips and the George McCaskies of the world. Here's what I would say is if there's any retribution, it's Justin Fields, right? And Ryan Pace made that move. Ryan Pace traded up and he said, hey, there's my guy again, right? There's my guy, and I want him. And he went and he got Justin Fields for the Chicago Bears. And when you talk about setting the Bears back a decade, that Justin Fields trade could have been his parting gift, because I've said it
You
and I'll
go
say it
like
again.
back 10 years and maybe forward 3, right? I mean, yeah, I guess I can see that.
Well, I say parting gift because, and I haven't changed my tone here, right? Is Justin Fields has the tools. He's a franchise quarterback. You can't say that about Mitch Trubisky. I can't say that about Mitch Trubisky, right? Does he have the
No.
tools? Is he a franchise quarterback? No, I said he's a good quarterback. He's a great athlete, right? Mitch Trubisky, I think he has like six rushing touchdowns, six or nine rushing touchdowns in his career.
Yeah.
A good athlete. You don't just get
Yeah.
you don't just get those rushing touchdowns if you're not a good athlete, right? But
Sure. But
Justin
that doesn't make you a good
Fields,
quarterback.
exactly. Justin Fields, I feel, has the potential to be the franchise, right? And I have this for later in the show, but maybe worth visiting. It's if you look at that 2021 draft class, right? The Trevor Lawrences of the world, the Mac Jones of the world, the Zach Wilsons of the world. I think Justin Fields could very easily be at the top of that draft class.
Well, I mean, I do recall this topic coming up, and I don't think that it's hard to see that. Like even as a Packers fan sitting here, and I'd love to just say, "Hey, man, you're crazy. He sucks." No, I mean that's not a fair thing to say, right? Justin Fields is good, man. He's got potential, right? He's a great athlete, athleticism through the roof. Seems like he's got the kind of poise and just the attitude that you want from a quarterback. Um, but yeah, when you do like when you compare him to what's going on in New York, man, there's no question. I want him over. I always forget the kid's name in for the Jets. Who did they take?
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. That's right, Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, there. I not no question for me. It's easily Justin Fields over Zach Wilson if I need to start a franchise today. Um, but yeah, so I think that that's a fair thing to say and kind of look at. We're still early on in it, right? I think you have to, as I said before about Justin Fields, your evaluation of him starts this year, right? And you can't, right now where we're sitting, you can't ignore what you saw last year because that's the majority of your sample size. But really, for where we're going, we're into the future. Your evaluation has to start this year, and I think that that's a good thing for him. You got a taste of what he can do, but now, as you said, Nagy in over his head, not probably the guy that you want a quarterback growing under. Um, and now you got to see is the crew that you have is that who you want? I mean, you got a guy in Getsy that came from coaching the best, so it seems like a pretty good start to me. But a lot is to be foreseen still. You gotta let a lot play out. There's just all sorts of things you can't predict. But yeah, no doubt about it, man. I think that when you look at that draft class, uh, it's hard to say that any one of those guys is somebody you'd want over Justin Fields, except for maybe Trevor Lawrence. I think that his situation is interesting, and I'd almost argue that the way he's handled himself down there has probably done him a lot of favors. And now, being under Doug Peterson, he's in a pretty decent situation to learn as a quarterback. Um, so there's a lot that could unfold there, but I don't think you'd rather be in a different spot if you're a Bears fan from where you sit now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say this on record. So I'm a big Duval fan. I of the fan base. I would ride with those Jaguar fans any day of the week. I mean,
They're down there
uh,
partying in the pool for their games, man. They're
yeah,
all
yeah.
about it.
I mean, not only that, but you also think about like when I talk about what it means to be a Bears fan, it's like if anybody gets it, right? It's Jackson. I mean, they can't stand their front office. they
Yeah.
can't they can't stand them.
Uh, their front office hired Urban Meyer, dude.
Golly, you talk about bad. I mean, he was
I'll
not
give
bad,
Chicago
over
a
your
pass
head.
for Nagy when you start comparing it to Urban Meyer. Like that is as bad as it gets. What a
I'd
train
be
wreck.
I'd be upset if I was a Jacksonville fan. I'd be upset, right? And I
Hey,
think
maybe this needs to be a future bookmark segment. But would you burn a jersey? Like, what does it take to burn a jersey?
I'm not a big
I'm not
jersey
either.
burning fan. I
I don't
don't
think
think I
I
could
could get there.
ever. I don't think I could get there. I
Maybe what
will say
Cleveland's
this.
doing right now. I might start considering at that point.
Oh, that's a
Different set.
Cleveland. What are you doing? But hey, check this out. With that Jacksonville fan base last season, right? They were so upset that they started this Twitter campaign where they were spamming all of the social media content with the clown emoji. Right? It took
Oh
off,
no.
and I just thought that it was one of the greatest little protests from a fan base that you can get, right.
I
And
love it.
I saw that eye to eye as a Bears fan. I was like, yeah, you give that front office a piece of your mind. But I will say this, and because I don't want to go off on a tangent here, Trevor Lawrence. I was a Trevor Lawrence fan when he was doing like Nike speed camps in high school, right? Just because he was such a freak quarterback. Like you're talking about, like, hey, this guy is going to be an NFL quarterback one day, and you're like, yes, he is. Putting the ball with zip right where it needs to be. I mean, you're talking about accuracy, you're talking about fundamentals, and then what he did in college.
I mean,
I
as a
was
freshman, right away he came
right
in
away,
slinging it.
right away. And as a Bears fan, I mean, I was just thinking, man, if there's any way that the Bears can get their hands on this guy, we're set. But I would say outside of him, Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, I would take Justin Fields 10 out of 10 times over both of those. And I would say 9 out of 10 times now, with what I know now and what I've seen now. And this is an emotional statement, obviously, as a fan, but I would take him over Trevor Lawrence just because I have emotions invested in him being a franchise quarterback, right? But yeah, outside of that, without getting too much on a tangent, we have also our wide receiver watch that we've been watching closely, and there was some interesting nuggets that came out with Aaron Rodgers being pretty vocal, right, of his expectations, which I'm a
Yep.
fan of, right? I mean,
Yep.
you gotta communicate those, and then Randall Cobb doubling down and calling out some of the young guys, right? So, what are your thoughts about that, Miles?
I love it. I love it. Um, and yeah, so I think it is important to touch on this right out of the gate on the receiver watch. Um, Last week when we recorded was right before that joint practice with the Saints where Rodgers got fired up, because the receivers really came out flat. And that can happen, and here I am trying to hold water for the receiver group and be overly optimistic, and I'll get called out for it. Um, but no, I mean, there was definitely some steps back for that group that deserve the criticism that Aaron Rodgers had, that Randall Cobb had. Now, I will say, um, it seems like it's directed to maybe one or two very specific individuals. Not that I have any idea who those would be, but the way that Randall Cobb made his statement, it sounded like he was talking to someone.
Who do you think he was
Um,
talking to?
I really don't know. I think that there's a couple of possibilities. I really don't think that he was talking to any of the rookies, um, because the way that the rookies have been playing up to this point, I mean, you're going to make mistakes as a rookie, but what they were getting upset about was it sounded like work ethic, just kind of general attitude around the expectations, and the rookies seem to be really responsive, and the next day we're out there making plays against the Saints defense, and it seemed like the writers on Twitter who were all sitting there firsthand, they seemed to agree, like, hey, the receivers responded to the criticism, they came out today and competed and made plays. um, but anyway, so I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of a maybe something to zoom in on and speculate on, something to kind of watch for, but it did seem very directed. So we'll see what happens. We'll see who maybe makes an early exit from that receiver group. Um, you know, I think that there's one person to watch specifically, not because this would have been directed at them, but just because of the situation he's in. Jawan Winfrey, he's been a guy who has made the decisions in that room very difficult for the front office, I think. I think they'd like it to be nice and clean. You got Lazard, you got your draft picks in Dobbs and Watson, you got Sammy Watkins that came in the offseason, then obviously you've got Randall Cobb, and Amari Rogers from last year. They'd like to make it nice and clean. Like, all right, these are the guys that you sort of obviously keep for each reason. But Jawan Winfrey, man, he's out there making plays on a very consistent basis. He's been doing that now for a couple of years, kind of floating on and off the practice squad. I almost wonder, is there any bad attitudes about whether or not somebody will be able to make the team? You just never know. So interesting thing to watch, but I ultimately I love it. I love the call out. I think that just based on the things that I saw from that bad practice, it did. It seemed like guys maybe were tired, maybe came out a little bit passive, and needed to be lit up to compete. And that is what these things are for. We were talking about a segment for joint practices. I love them, man. I think joint practices, and not the team segments necessarily, but the one-on-ones, they force a level of competition that you just don't get after those first few practices with your team. After that, you're just kind of like, all right, these are the guys we've been going against. You can work on some things. Like, he's good at this, so I'll try to work on my game against his strength. Stuff like that. But you're not going to get that just like raw competition. And what I really think of is the receiver one-on-ones with the DBs. Man, when you're going against another team, and I kind of think back to days when I was playing and we got to scrimmage against teams, that is just as raw as competition gets, man. It is me against you. You're trying to prove something to your coach and your team. I'm trying to prove something to my coach and my team, and one of us is going to lose. And that is just, I love that, man. I think that really it tests what you have in guys, because some guys will shrink in those moments, and we'll find out. I think, again, we'll see who makes an early exit from this group, but some guys shrink in those moments, and like it or not, you've got to figure out who's going to shrink in those moments and who's not. So I love the joint practices. I love what happened. I love the call out. I love the attitude from Rogers, from Cobb. I thought it was interesting, and I don't know if anybody else caught this. Kenny Stills seemed to be taking an interest in the situation, and has an apparent desire to join the Packers. I thought that was kind of interesting, and something to keep an eye on if somebody does make an early exit from this group. And they need to fill that with a veteran presence. We'll see. Overall, receiver watch from Packers camp, man, I think it's overall up right now. I take criticism for not being too harsh on this group, or maybe not too critical on this group. But right now, I think the first piece to remedying the situation of life without Devontae Adams was, who do you bring in? Well, Goot said, all right, here's Sammy Watkins, here's Christian Watson, here's Romeo Dobbs, and a few of the other guys that, like I said, have made some plays, as lower round draft picks or undrafted free agents. But overall, as a fan, am I upset about what he brought in? And do I think it's enough? Do I think that they made a good enough attempt to replace the best receiver in the league within the offense that they run? And the answer to that question is, I think they did as good as they could. Yeah, I think they did. And we're sitting here giving a lot of criticism to Ryan Pace for mortgaging the farm and kind of selling out for the guys that he really wanted to go after. I don't necessarily want a GM to do that. I think a lot of people wanted a first round pick just for the sake of getting a first round pick. But it's, when you look at the guys who were there, not only this draft, but the last several drafts when the Packers were there, um, it's just like, it's not that guy. Like, you didn't have a shot at Jamar Chase. Like, I think that the closest you could say that they got was Justin Jefferson, and I think they were still like 8 picks away from a Justin Jefferson. Maybe it was closer than that, but you know that's the one that you could maybe look at and go, man, they could have traded up to get him. It wouldn't have taken your whole future to do that. And hindsight's 2020, okay? Instead, they got Jordan Love, which we still can't say we know how that pans out. But if he becomes your next Hall of Fame quarterback, you're fucking welcome. And we usually don't drop language on that, but I mean, that's basically the way you look at it if you're Goot at that point. But I think as a fan, I'm happy with what they brought in this offseason to replace Devontae Adams. Um, you know, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, a lot of different things that can be critiqued. Ultimately, I think it was cool that they helped the player get paid. They helped him play where he wanted to play. He gave them 8 phenomenal years of football, and they said, "Here you go. This is what you want. We'll give it to you." I don't have criticism for that. Selfishly as a
Yeah.
fan, do I want the best receiver in football on my roster? Yeah, I do. But you know what? He was for 8 years. He wasn't the best receiver in football for 8 years, but that guy was on our roster for 8 years. He was probably the best receiver in football for the last 2 to 3. Um, you got a lot of phenomenal football out of him. If the situation was at a head where, I mean, they made the money offer, they said, "Here, we'll give you this money," and he said, "I'd rather do this." I don't want them to do what it takes to force the guy to stay. I think they made a savvy move. They got a decent return for him. I don't think they can really criticize the return that they get for him. And let's also pay attention to the cap space that frees up for not paying a receiver $30 million a year. There's some movement there that you can make. Signing a Devondre Campbell to an extension, or re-signing him. Rasul Douglas, bringing that guy back, bringing in a Sammy Watkins. These moves that they were able to make, and then also getting a Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker. I mean, the package that you got in total compensation there. And I mean, I know I'm probably throwing that together kind of sloppy, but that's generally how I look at it. That's not bad, right? Like, situation for situation, that's not bad. Set of circumstances for set of circumstances, you did all right. So now, what happens with the guys that you brought in? And that's where we get back to where we are now. Do I have criticism for them not bringing in enough to replace Devontae Adams? No, I don't. I'm putting that criticism behind us. If these guys don't pan out, okay, then we can open that back up. But right now, we got to see what happens. So, from there, where are we at? Are we criticizing these guys for where they are in their development and how they look in camp so far? Uh, Not Romeo Dobbs. And yeah, the guy's dropped a couple of balls, but that's going to happen. You want those balls dropped in training camp. You want them dropped in the preseason. Again, plenty of examples of guys who've done that in the past and been just fine in the regular season. He is getting comfortable in the NFL right now and making exceptional plays. Love what we've seen from Romeo Dobbs. Christian Watson, we're about to see. He I believe, is back in practice now, playing with teams in practice. So that's really encouraging. You're going to get to see this guy before the regular season, so we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot that has to play out. So overall, any criticism for the room right now, I think would just be, you know, I hope you got your head on straight. I hope all of you have your head on straight. I mean, I don't think there's a question about Randall Cobb or Alan Lazard. I think those guys are going to show up. They've always been kind of a business mentality. But the young guys, I hope they're ready. I hope Sammy Watkins is checked back in. It sounds like maybe he had some issues with his focus and where he felt like he was mentally before. So I hope he's checked in. And if all these guys are dialed in and they're competing, they're focused, boy, I'm excited about this room. I think that the potential in the room is huge, but there's still just so much to be seen. So that's where I'm not willing to overreact to anything. We're going to keep it at an underreaction on the receiver watch. How are we looking over there in Chicago? Is Darnell Mooney? Is he Darnell Sonny? What are we looking at?
Well, I want to say a couple things. Is
Sure.
you can't replace Devontae at all, right? Like, just call a spade a spade. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Even
It
if you
really
go and
is.
get Tyreek Hill, right? Like,
That's
maybe
what, and that's what I was
you
going to
can argue
say.
that. It's like,
I
no,
was going to
no,
say
it's
there's
not the
maybe
same.
one or two that are in the hemisphere that is Devonte Adams type talent. You can't just go and replace that in an off season, right? And
No.
with that being said, Randall Cobb, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something along the lines of like, "Hey, this is how we do things here, and if you're not willing to get on board with that, then you can leave." And again, paraphrasing, but to
It was
me that
about that.
sounds,
I mean, it's
yeah,
yeah.
it was about that. And with that being said, it's when you couple that with Aaron Rodgers and his quote unquote call out of that position group, or a few guys or one guy or whatever, however we want to, position this, to me, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And it's one of those where it's like, yeah, you don't want to overreact. I would say in the spectrum of underreacting, overreacting, it could be somewhere in the middle, right? Where there's some guys where you want a lot more than what they're giving you. I want to say that with what I said earlier of like, hey, let's just look at it objectively. Running back, I'm giving the edge to the Packers. Receiver group, I'm giving the edge to the Bears, right? And it's taken me a few weeks to get here, right? Because I wasn't willing to die on this hill early. But again,
Okay.
where there's smoke, there's fire. And the Bears receiver group that's gotten a lot of attention, a lot of polarizing attention. And I think this storyline, national storyline, is that the Bears have done absolutely nothing to help Justin Fields, right? I think in order for that to be true, you have to take a step back and look at last year's receiving room and say, has there been any improvement here? Right? Because, yeah, they didn't go out, and same thing as the Packers. They didn't pick up the wide receiver in the first round. They didn't pick up any of the top guys that were coming out of college. And I think everybody can point to George Pickens and say, "Hey, look, this guy's a wide receiver one, and he was a mid round draft pick, right?" And with that being said, is going back to, was there improvement there? Yes, I think that there was improvement, especially from the guys that are taking the reps, the guys that are in camp here, and Tajay Sharp. He's not blowing anybody away, but he's an NFL wide receiver, right? And I know the bar is low when I say that, right? But the Bears haven't had NFL wide receivers that are really worth a whole lot when we're talking about the rest of the league. Now, there's Allen Robinson that was completely checked out last year, that had a contract dispute with the front office and did not see eye to eye with Matt Nagy and was just sandbagging the entire season, collecting his paycheck, taking plays off, right? And so I think that's an isolated example. But when you talk about the receiver room today and you have Darnell Mooney, and I said this in an earlier episode, he's going to have a breakout year, right? Keep your eye on number 11. He has a relationship with Justin Fields on a personal level, and I expect big things from Darnell Mooney. Beyond that, I think that there's enough talent with something to prove that I mentioned earlier, where you aren't getting the same reports out of that room, out of training camp, out of Hallis Hall. That's, the head coach or Justin Fields saying like, hey, these guys need to show up more. I think that there's going to be guys that are understanding what's at stake, right? And they might not be with the Bears long term, but they might understand, right, like that they need to put something out on the field this year, and they do that. And I think they do that with Velus Jones, who's their one receiver from the draft class that I mentioned earlier, that's just got elite speed, right? He's definitely going to be able to make some space, and if he gets the ball out in space, watch out, right? Because he could take it to the house. You have Darnell Mooney, you have Byron Pringle, who was Mahomes' third option, right? And again, nothing to write home about, but NFL wide receiver, right? I think that's the baseline for the Bears at this point. I give the edge to the Bears for that position group. A lot can change between now and that 4-week mark that you mentioned in the regular season, where you really got a sense for who you have on your team and who's coming in and week out. I'm giving you the edge to that group here in our 4th episode.
I have a challenge
Let's hear it.
because that I don't think that group has the edge over the Packers group. So here's what I want to
No
do.
one thinks that. No
Here's what
one
I want
thinks
to do.
that.
Let's go down the line. Give me your. I'm looking at the list right now. I think of the guys that are on your roster. Who's your receiver 1 through 5 on the Bears? Just give me your best prediction you can give. This is not necessarily for prediction receipts about who makes the team and who's 1 through 5, but for the
Yeah.
sake of this argument, who's your 1 through 5?
Darnell Mooney, one, right?
Fair.
Then EQ, probably going to be your possession receiver. But beyond that, Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, and I believe Tajay Sharp makes that fifth spot.
Darnell Mooney, Equanimous, Byron Pringle, Velus Jones, and Tajay Sharp.
Yes.
Did I get that right? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to go just head to head here. All right. Receiver one against receiver one. And I'm going to call Alan Lazard our receiver one. And I'll concede that Darnell Mooney is probably higher upside than Alan Lazard. I don't want to get too caught up in comparing the two too much because they're very different types of players. Um, but I'll concede the higher upside probably has a higher Madden rating if we need to just use something objective there. Um,
55
so
minute
let's move
mark.
down. You've got one win here. We'll just call it a win. You got a check mark, a win on receiver one. Let's move down to receiver two. Who are you calling your receiver two? Is that Equanimous?
See, I don't. I would say yeah. It's got to be EQ today. Um,
Maybe like him slash Byron Pringle. They're like 2 and 3.
so the way I look at it is Velus Jones has the tools, right, to be your number two guy, and you would want him to be your number two guy. Um, but I think he grows into that over the season, right? So when I say today, I think that EQ is going to be that for Justin Fields, and I say that with an asterisk because Byron Pringle hasn't suited up a whole lot.
I see he's got
And
a
he's
questionable status right now.
yeah. I think he makes a week one appearance, but I think if we're going for today, it's Equanimous.
So your receiver two in your receiver room that you're saying is better than the Packers receiver room is is a former Packers receiver who got cut from this group.
Yes,
Receipts, folks. Receipts.
receipts.
That one
Yeah,
is for receipts.
yeah,
All right, so let's put Equanimous, Mr. St. Brown, up against our receiver two, and I'm trying to wrestle back and forth with this between probably Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins, but for
yeah. I see.
pedigree's
Neither,
sake,
neither of
I'm
those. I
going
wouldn't
Sammy Watkins.
if I was a GM of an NFL franchise. Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins, they wouldn't be on my radar, right? Like, and you could
Well,
make the
you're
same
not a
argument.
GM though.
No, I know, but you can make the same argument for EQ, right? You
Yeah,
could. It's like, is he on my radar? No, but these are the cards we were dealt, and so I don't think that the gap between EQ and Sammy Watkins or Randall Cobb is as big as you are making it out to be. I don't think that
that's
talent
interesting.
gap. Yeah, I don't think that talent gap is because I don't have a whole lot that I could say about either of those, right? Randall Cobb or Sammy Watkins, where I would say they're clearly better than EQ.
Well, for one, we'll use Randall Cobb on this one, but you used the relationship between Mooney and Fields as a positive check mark for Mooney. Randall Cobb is like Aaron Rodgers' best friend, man. So that definitely counts for something over EQ because I guarantee you EQ is not Fields' best friend. Now, that certainly doesn't end the argument, but I would say that you, Mr. Dead Inside, have seen number 18 carve up your heart more than once. And I don't think he's done yet. The guy is not 35 years old. I believe he's still in his 20s, man. He's like 28, 29 years old. And so is Sammy Watkins. They're not even 30 years old yet. So that's where I think a lot of people might be sleeping on these two who are not on your GM radar. Um, but okay. And then from there, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, those two, I think, if I had to make an argument, to bring them into this, their upside is much better than your receiver 3 through 4, 5, whatever, wherever they need to fit in there. We've kind of jumbled this whole ordering, pecking order, but anyway, I think this needs to be an ongoing argument, man, because I don't.
Yeah,
We
yeah, but
definitely disagree
we
tonight.
said this that this would be right one of the polarizing rooms, position
Yeah,
groups for both teams. I like to think that I'm looking at it objectively, right? Obviously, you have to take a step back and assess it. Like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And with that statement, I essentially am saying I don't think it's all rainbows and unicorns in Green Bay at that position group. Um, and I think that one thing that we are maybe myself overlooking is if you ask me, Miguel, who is Justin Fields' second option, second receiving option, because I think it's very clear that number one is Darnell Mooney. Number two
sure.
is not in the wide receiver room. I think that his number two option is Cole Kmet. And I think Cole Kmet comes out and has his breakout season as well. Right.
That
So,
muddies this argument, though. We're talking about receiver rooms.
yeah, but I mean, the question was, who's the number two receiving option? And like I said,
Well,
I think Darnell Mooney, clear number one, Cole Kmet, number two. For the receiver room, I'm still giving it to the Bears with the room that they have. Right. And like I said, this is something that we have to keep an eye on and obviously monitor as we go into the season. But hey, they're playing week 2, right? I think that's going to be a very clear indication of
yes,
does a
we will.
receiver does a position group stand out?
Yeah, we'll get a good taste of that. And I all right, live correction here. Randall Cobb is 32. Sammy Watkins is 29. So yeah, never mind. Randall Cobb is in his 30s, but still, I think when you've got that brain in that room, for a lot of reasons that we were given Mr. St. Brown some props, his brain being in Luke Getzey's room. Randall Cobb is Jedi compared to St. Brown's apprentice, man.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things we could go back and forth. Let the record show that we hard disagree here
Oh
tonight,
yeah.
and that's okay. That's what this podcast is for.
Absolutely.
One other thing is we're just kind of hitting the preseason headlines. I did want to note that the Packers are getting healthy. We're very excited to see not only Elgin Jenkins has come back and has been participating, but now, as of today, Mr. David Bakhtiari is coming back. The best left tackle in football. Watch out, y'all. Like,
Yeah.
this
And
Packers
as we get
offense is all arrows up.
as we get close to week 1, that's what you want to see, right? You want to
Yes.
see that that injury list starts clearing up. And so that's good. That's exciting. Um, I saw he took I don't know if it was just the offensive line that was running position drills or whatever, but he lined up at quarterback at
Didn't see
practice.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good watch.
I gotta say, I love the personality that he is. Him
Yeah.
and there's a lot of personalities in that room, but definitely makes it fun for a fan.
Well, he can chug
So
a
no,
beer better than Aaron Rodgers can.
well, it's all right. Aaron Rodgers is like, yeah, it's fine. I'll just win a couple of MVPs back to back and not need to chug a beer. It's no big deal. I'll go do some ayahuasca in the Amazon.
No kidding. No kidding. That's probably, once you do ayahuasca in the Amazon, I bet you NFL defenses don't seem that scary.
You're like, listen, man, I've seen the
I
universe
saw
up
some
close.
shit.
You think your cover three's got me? No, sir.
No, no. Boy, I
Oh
tell you, I don't
man.
know if that led to that tattoo, but golly, that tattoo something
Apparently it
else.
did. Yeah,
There,
there's a lot to unpack there, man. Yeah,
holy
apparently
smokes.
the ayahuasca did lead to the tattoo, and there's been some rumors floating around that he's got a super weird girlfriend. Who
You could
knows?
argue
Hope he's
that his
happy.
girlfriend has a super weird boyfriend.
You definitely could make that
You
argument at
could
this
make that
point.
argument.
No problem
When
making that
we talk
argument right
about
now.
snipping the episode and just putting a YouTube clip up there, I think that's the one for this week.
Minute
Um,
104.
yeah. Hey, let's talk about the ESPN broadcast. We have to touch on it. Um, they rolled out Dan Orlovsky, Lewis Riddick, to call the game, and I'm just going to go out and say it. I mean, it was a very lazy take, in my opinion. They started the episode all pregame and all throughout the first half that the Bears were the worst team in the NFL, um, as they're beating the Sox off of Seattle. Which, granted, right? I mean, it's meaningless in the grand scheme of things, but I mean, here they are just beating Seattle, clearly out coaching Pete Carroll. Um, you're talking about sloppy play, sloppy penalties from Seattle's group, and all you're hearing is praise for Seattle and the potential that they have. When, I mean, again, we're talking about just being a fan, just the eye test, right? You got Geno Smith out there, and Drew Lock, they're saying, is going to win that quarterback battle, and I mean, he's in COVID protocol. Just not a lot that you would really feel confident in. Like, hey, this Seattle team is much much better than this Chicago team, and yet going and just laying into Ryan Poles, for it felt like the entire game. Um, and then it just makes you question, right? Like, do they have storylines that they have to push? Yes, right? Like, they have narratives that they have to push. I mean, they're talking heads. These are the same guys that they
Yeah.
make a living Monday through Friday on talk TV, right? Talk show TV. Um, but it just felt really lazy, and I think that the audience got sick of it, at least from Bears Twitter. Like, come on, guys, give us some
Yeah.
credit, right? Like, give us some credit here. I just thought it was lazy. I just thought that they could do better, and I think that they could even pivot potentially, right? Like, if you're watching the game, like, maybe pivot and give real time analysis or real time feedback, but it just stayed tired and true to what they were bashing the Bears about. And then Dan Orlovsky, after calling the Bears, right, the probably the worst team in the NFL to start the game, comes in at halftime and start of the third quarter, says they've been disciplined. They're playing hard, right? And Miles, I'm not sure if you remember, but that's something I said, right? That's going to be a characteristic of this football team that you haven't seen in the past, right? Is they're going to come out and they're going to play hard and they're going to play disciplined. Um, And that there it is, clear as day. Dan Orlovsky, yeah, well, they're playing hard. They're playing disciplined ball and also beating the brakes off of them. But let's not mention that, right? And that's what I'm saying. Don't want to overreact because it is preseason. But I said this and I'll say it again. The Bears are going to smack some people in the mouth this year. And that's why for me, it's almost one of those where it's like you look at it like a double-edged sword. You need to keep that national narrative, right? Like, why not? Why not keep that national narrative that the Bears are the worst team in the NFL? Because it's easy to fly under the radar and get and sneak up on some people and get those wins where we talked about where they're going to surprise some people. You can't surprise people when you're the Kansas City Chiefs or the Green Bay Packers, right? Like, you don't roll in
Yeah.
you don't roll in into an opposing city and they're sleeping on you. No, they're going to bring the best, right? And I think you always play to your competition. It's just one of those anomalies of sport. You play to your competition, and if week in and week out people think that they're playing the worst team in football, right? You played football, Miles. Any given Sunday, you go in there, you're lining up, anything could happen, right?
Yeah.
I just think the ESPN broadcast was awful. That's my opinion.
No, no disagreement from me. My Twitter history will show I've got plenty of hate for ESPN. No
Yeah,
love lost there.
no
I don't
love
think I've had a
lost.
positive tweet for them in a very long
Golly.
time. I'll tell you, ESPN lost me. I think it was 2013, might have been early 2014, when they let Ron Jaworski run a segment about why Colin Kaepernick would be the greatest QB in NFL history. Now, I know that that's a little bit of an inflammatory name. This was before any of the political stuff was going on, right after they lost the Super Bowl. Lost the Super Bowl. So right after the 49ers lose the Super Bowl, let's run a segment about why their quarterback will ultimately go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. Oh, wait, he didn't. For whatever reason, you guys, I'm sure everybody let that argument just play itself out. I have no dog in that fight. I am so over that topic. But the point being, they had no business running that segment at that point in time, regardless of who that was. Like, this guy has not won any Super Bowls. He just lost one. He doesn't have a whole lot to call him the greatest ever about. Like, it was just, boy, it bothered me because like here, I think that was like my moment where I realized like ESPN is not the ESPN I grew up with. Right? They've changed. And again, not getting into all that, it's just you can look at things over time and say, well, the ownership changed, these things change, management changes, things just change. Um, and yeah, so no, definitely no defense for ESPN for me, and certainly I don't think they've gotten any better since that 2013 Ron Jaworski nugget of gold. Um, but then there was the layoffs. That was what, several years ago now, where they let go of a lot of the good people that I thought were at ESPN and left a lot of the weirdos. Just the attention grabbing Stephen A's of the world. That
Yeah.
it's just so disappointing, man. It just seemed like quality sports commentary went out the window for like everything else. Whatever gets clicks, man, and shame on the viewers. We're the ones clicking. We got to stop clicking that crap.
Well, I don't know if it's shame on the viewers because they're losing subscribers at a record, like an astonishing rate. They're losing
As they
subscribers,
should. They
and
should.
I think that to your point of, they made their decision, they made their bed, right? They knew
Yeah.
what they wanted to put on TV. They knew the storylines that they wanted to promote or the narratives that they wanted to push, and I don't think that, or I should change that. I think that there is a correlation that you can point to into the rise of podcasts, right? People
Oh
aren't
yeah.
tuning in. I mean, 20 years ago, Miles, this was a non-factor. People were watching ESPN for all things
Yeah,
sports,
man. Dude,
everything sporting.
20 years ago, running Sports Center 24/7 was like the thing to do. Like just put it
Yes.
on ESPN, just let it run, man. That was like
You could have it on all
or
day.
NFL Network, one of the two. Like, man, you could. It just run and just it was good. You wanted to watch it. Fridays you got the not top 10. Every day you got the top 10. I mean, there was just it was great sports content. That was the peak of sports, or at least cable sports content. Now I got to say, shout out to Pat McAfee and some of the others that are really starting to make independent sports media um, great. I mean,
Absolutely.
for a
Absolutely. And I
fan, Pat McAfee's what I want. I want somebody who's just one. He's coming from a place of experience. He's played the game, been around the guys, but he just talks, man. He just says what needs to be said. He just lets it fly. If he's got an F bomb in there, whatever, man. I'm just out here talking sports. Let's go watch wrestling after this. I don't know.
and that's almost
I
what
love it, man.
that's almost what ESPN feels like now is wrestling, right? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah, kind of.
WWE, WWF of
Yeah.
sports news and sports reporting. And I would say this, and not, and again, not because I'm a Bears fan and they were trashing the Bears on a national broadcast, but like you said, ESPN when I was a kid was on 24/7. I mean, it was always on. It was always what I was tuning into. I wouldn't watch ESPN if it weren't for the sport, like the broadcast of a live sporting event. Right? I'm not
Yep.
tuning in
That's where I'm
to
at.
the I don't even know what the name of the show is where Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless just
Well, it
just
used to be
scream at each
First
other.
Take. I
Yeah,
they
whatever it is
changed it
now.
now.
But like I said, look, and this you can fact check me here. They are losing subscribers
Oh yeah,
in the
big time.
millions. And I think what it goes to show is, yes, there's more selection or options for a sports fan, right? To where they want to consume content. But I think the message is being sent to ESPN is very clear. It's not ESPN where people want to tune into for their content. But
No,
want to get off that soapbox, and
I love it. No
yeah,
disagreement for me. Down with ESPN. Get them out of here.
we don't need you. We don't need you. Well, I guess we do need you because we have to tune into Monday Night Football. They have those TV rights. But
Somebody
I'm
needs to
interested.
buy
I'm
that. Get
interested
it
to
out of here.
see. Yeah, Jeff Bezos. He obviously bought Thursday Night Football. But yeah, we like I said, if it wasn't for ESPN having the rights to Monday Night Football, I don't know if I'm tuning in anymore.
Maybe we can get Elon Musk to buy Monday Night Football. Like, hey man, your
Yeah,
your rival billionaire over there, he got one of them. You need to go get the other one. This one's better anyway. Get the
yeah.
Monday night one. It's way better.
Monday Night Football being broadcasted from the moon.
from from Mars.
Oh, geez.
Oh man,
You talk
yeah.
about
Let's
hang
make that
time.
happen.
You talk about
Make that
hang time. That
happen.
ball ain't coming down.
Make that happen, man. Buy Monday Night Football. Next thing we know, Elon's building a dome on Mars, and we get football on Mars, guys. Let's go. That's way better than
Yes.
ESPN broadcast.
Yeah, that's how
Oh
you know it's
man.
bad. But hey, we got some quick hitters. We got about a few more moments here
Yeah,
to
yeah,
stay
yeah.
put.
Let's jump on. Hey,
You want
hey,
to jump
no
around the
more
league?
NOquan. You got some MOquan holdout
Yes. Here, two
officially over?
very quick. Right. Last week I said the guy has no leverage. The
Yeah,
best
you're
thing
right.
that he could do is play out his final year of his rookie deal, and then a week later, that's exactly what happens, right? He comes to his senses. He suits up. He's practicing. He has his press conference. He says, "Hey, my heart is with the Chicago Bear fans and this team, and I want to be a good locker room guy, and I'm betting on myself." Um, I mean, that's what you want to hear as a fan. I mean,
Yep.
look, do you want him to be a Bear forever? Right? Will he be a Bear next season? You don't know. I mean, you don't know. They could franchise tag him, but it's refreshing that this storyline has reached its conclusion, right? And it put it away. Hopefully, we don't have to hear from Saint Omni until next year when when he busts
Isn't
out
that
the
you?
party.
I thought that
Yeah,
was you. Aren't you saying Omni?
the Party City mustache that Roquan puts on when he calls other NFL front offices. No, it's the most practical resolution to that whole holdout. And I stay true to my original advice to Roquan Smith, and that's hire an agent. Hire an agent. It's very easy to get muddled and personal and take offense and get your emotions and your feelings hurt, I should say, when you represent yourself when it comes down to numbers. So yeah, Roquan will be a Bear, and he'll be starting week 1.
Here we go. There we go, man. Well, that I can totally relate with. Certainly not this off season. This off season has been much more quiet than the previous two for Packer fans. But yeah, when the Rodgers stuff finally subsided, when the Adams stuff finally subsided, and everything was just decided, it felt much better. So I could totally relate to that. Good to see it. We'll see what comes out with Roquan, and if he is just the best linebacker on an 8-8 team, or if maybe he earns some equity with Mister Poles as a Poles guy. Now we'll see. Because if
Yep.
Poles signs him to a new contract, he's then a Poles guy, right?
Well, yes, and as I was listening to you, it just came to mind. Excuse me. That I would be comfortable with Poles and him coming to an agreement, and he signs an extension, and he wants to be Chicago Bear. Because I don't think that it's going to be outlandish, and I don't think that his contract was like right around the $18 million a year mark, right? Like it's not the big slap in the face that Roquan was making it out to be. But I do think that it just puts you in a position where you don't have your back against the wall when it comes to next offseason. You have flexibility, you have options. And like I said, if he's a Bear, he's a Bear. If not, then this is a good farewell tour. And, I think,
Somebody will pay him.
yeah, somebody will pay him. I think Colin Coward said it with the Bears, be less of the Bears, be more of a modern team, right? And invest heavily on the offensive side of the ball. Look, I agree with that. Um, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? And the Bears, what do? They invest heavily on the defensive side of the ball. They have, good defenses, usually top 10 defenses on their good years. But what do you have to show for it, right? And I think that, at some
Complete
point,
incompetence on offense.
yeah,
If
no,
I can
and
just give you
that's
the
true.
Packers perspective.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely. Well,
mean,
that's not the Packers' perspective. That's, I think, Bear fans' perspective, right? It's like,
but this, I almost want to offer like a counterpoint here though, to because you sent me the Colin Cowherd clip, and I get it, like, hey, you get on with the trends and all this and that, but still, we talked about it last time. Defenses still win championships.
yeah,
You
draft
can
it,
you can
draft the
build a great
defense.
defense. Well, and that's true. That's been that's what the Buccaneers did. That's been kind of the model. I guess the Rams are a bit of an exception. They've traded for everything they've gotten, but it's worked for them. Um, but no, I mean, when you talk about building a team, I think that Chicago should not turn away from that defensive mentality. I mean, if that's who you are, that's who you are. But you also don't have to be a complete liability on the offensive side of the ball. There's definitely a middle ground there. Like, get your Trent Dilfer level, Brad Johnson level offense to, play good enough football for your championship level defense. And, I think that that's where I won't go as far as to say I felt bad for Bears fans, but man, have y'all been just playing a game of whack a mole? You get a great defense, and then you've got just a JV offense. I mean, you got Jay Cutler, the fourth best Packers quarterback in Packers history. He's just slinging completions to Packers DBs left and right.
Yeah.
Letting Charles Woodson do a dance all over him into the Hall of Fame. It just, and sorry, you're dead inside, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. But I kind of disagree with that. I really think that the Bears should still try to own that defensive mentality, but don't be totally inept on offense. And they're not, right. Like JF1, he's the first step to that. When that guy is your field general on your offense, you're not going to be, at least the way it looks right now. I think he's probably the closest thing to a franchise quarterback that you guys have had in a long time. Um, yeah, you're going to be at least competent. You'll be able to get the ball down the field when you've got a championship caliber defense. But you don't seem to have a championship caliber defense right now.
I think what Ryan Poles did incredibly well was dig his heels in, stick to his guns, and put himself in a position where next offseason, if Roquan plays lights out, and let's say that he is who
Sign him.
Roquan thinks he is, right? Then yeah, all right, young man, let's sit down and come to an agreement, right? I said this last week. Hey, he's under contract, right? It's not like this is one of those where it's like you need to pay him or you lose him. No, he's under contract, right? And this is his final contract year. And I said this, it would behoove him to play this year, right? And play well. So he doesn't have that, I would say, luxury, right, that to check out like Allen Robinson did last year, because you talk about a payday, right? If you want that payday, Roquan, guess what you got to do? You got to go out there and play hard and make plays and maybe shut some people up, right? Um,
Right.
but I think what
Go
Ryan
earn it.
Poles did well, exactly. Go earn it. What Ryan Poles did well is say, hey man, either do it, earn it, right? The way I want you to earn it, because you're not my guy.
Yeah.
You're not my guy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he will be a Bear. Said it, he'll be suited up week 1. Will he be a Bear? I don't know. Well, now we know. We have the answer to that. Finally, he
Now
will
we
be a
know.
Bear. And I think that makes the Bears a better football team, right? I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, well, we don't know if that improves a team or hurts it. No, if Roquan suits up, I think the Bears are a better football team.
Yeah, no, I think that's easy to agree on. Whether he's the best linebacker in the league or not, sure, somebody can have that debate. I'm not wasting time on that. But yeah, your defense is better with him than without him as of right now. Now, if you've got an off season to find a replacement, or again, a combination of things that serve as a replacement, then fine. But yeah, as of right now, definitely better with him on the field.
Don't Miles. I know that you say this is a receipt machine, right? This show. I'd say write this one down. Ryan Poles. I would put money that Ryan Poles drafts, regardless of Roquan's contract situation. He drafts a weak side linebacker next year.
Okay.
And
We'll have to have a section in the description for everything. Receipts. So we can just go back and
receipts.
read.
Yeah. Receipts from episode 4. Ryan Poles drafts a weak side linebacker next year in next year's draft.
And the Bears receiver room is better than the Packers receiver room right now.
Yeah, put that on the board. Put it on the board.
Oh, happily. I will happily.
We got to give the people what they want, right? We can't just
I'm gonna
we can't
make
just
you eat that one later.
Yeah, well, we can't just sit here and it's all, like I said, rainbow and sunshines, right? Like
Yeah,
we
that's
can't
fair.
Do that.
Hey,
We
so
got to give the
speaking of
people what
giving
they
the
want.
people what they want, we decided to build in a little segment for you called "Your Side of the Street." So it's basically an opportunity for us to help each other keep our side of the street clean. So if my side of the street needs to be cleaned up, Miguel, I need you to let me know, and
Well,
I'll
clean
do the
it
same for
up.
you. Well, all right. What do I got on my side of the street? What needs to be cleaned up here?
I would just say maybe it's not a Miles thing. Maybe I don't know
It can be a
a
Packer fan thing.
Packer
I'll
fan
stand
thing,
for
right?
Packers Twitter if I have to.
And I won't be overly critical here. And I think that's the knock on me, right? Is that I'm just a little bit too nice to you and to the Packer community. Look, guys, I'm gonna say this. It's and I think the contrast for me is I could rip into you give me an hour, I'll rip into the Bears. I'll tell you everything from Sunday to Monday, right? On what we could be doing better. And it just seems like there's Kool-Aid up in Lambeau, and it must be good, right? Because it's like pulling teeth to get any sort of critical, like, what, there needs to be this, or what, this person needs to be better. And like, if that's how you feel, I don't know if it's my lane or my responsibility to say, wow, like, and I've said it a few times, like, there's just like I don't know if you want to quote it, quote unquote, delusional or the coping, right? But I will say this, right? It's like I've been vocal that there's a lot that sometimes is a sentiment of yours that I don't see eye to eye on. Like, right, like today, let's call a spade, the wide receiver room. I don't I Is it close?
We
Yes.
have a hard disagreement.
We have a hard disagreement.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know if that's a Miles thing or just a Packers thing. And I'm not sitting here blaming you, right? Because like I
No, no. Hey,
said,
this is the call out section, man.
yeah,
Bring it
this
on.
is
Let's
this
go.
is this is a call out section. So I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I'm blaming you, because I mean, look at the history, right? I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot that you're yearning for. You're not yearning for a franchise quarterback. You're not
No,
yearning for competency, right? Like, I'm
no.
pounding on doors, I'm pulling my hair out to just don't call a timeout there, right? Don't challenge that. Don't run
Well,
a hitch route on 3rd and 10, and you're only running a 5-yard route, right? Like, I'm like, come on, like, that's where I'm saying, like, I don't expect you to have the disdain that I have for my football team. But I think sometimes, like I said, maybe the Kool-Aid is nice and refreshing.
it's
Um,
so good.
but like I
It's
said, like, I would
delicious.
love that. I would love that. I would love if I could be on this show and just say, hey man, no, we got it in the bag. The
You
Bears,
just
baby.
love drinking
It's
Kool
like,
Aid, man.
yeah, if I wish I could, but you know what? Maybe in the future, maybe, as tides change, maybe that's in my stars. But I think that
You
would
might.
be where, clean up my side of the street. I would just say, and I think it'd be good for the show if you came in here and you had something where you're just like, I want to lay into this because the expectation is good winning football, right? And I think that's why I
Yes.
say this
Yes.
with an asterisk. It's like I get it. You guys haven't been deprived of winning football, and I think that's why sometimes it's really easy for me to just sit back and just say, hey, that's how he feels. That's how he feels.
Well, if I can have a rebuttal,
No, you
I don't
can't.
disagree with you. But what I want to say here is the areas where we were deprived, call it 2010 through now, since the last Super Bowl win, those areas have been addressed, right? So, like you're saying, you've been banging on doors for competency. Well, when we ran out of competency in Mike McCarthy, they went and got competency. They replaced Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson, who had their reign of competency and ran out of it. Um, and they replaced it with two great competent options. I mean, you want me to be mad that Matt LaFleur has gone 13-3 for his first 3 seasons as a head coach in the NFL? Like, what do I criticize there, man? Like, how do you ask for more than that? He's got a better start than Bill Belichick. Like, I can't. Oh shoot! I'm getting real passionate now. I can't be mad about that. And then on the other side of it, the things that we were hungry for a good defense, and not just a good defense. We were hungry for good safeties and good linebackers. Guess what? We got good safeties and we got good linebackers now. Something we haven't had in a long time. We've got depth in the cornerback room from 1 through 3. You've got NFL top caliber starters. We got Adrian Amos, who's one of the best leaders in the NFL, in my own opinion. Watching the guy play is a gift. Like, it's fun to watch him lead on the field because he's a football player. He's like watching Charles Woodson in some cases. Like, the plays that he makes are savvy, they're heady. We've gotten a lot of good football. Like, I've got a lot of things to be grateful for as a Packer fan. Now, there's things that I'm happy to lay into them on, but mostly those things happen in the regular season or in the playoffs. Like, where you talk about where have we been deprived? Well, we've been to a hell of a lot of NFC Championship games without going to the next game, and I'll tell you what, I'm I'm damn sick of that. But we're not facing that right now. This is the preseason. I can't be like, man, these guys, if they don't win the NFC Championship, I'm gonna go through the. Dude, I got months to have that opinion. Like, yeah, like, mark it away. If they don't win the NFC Championship this year, it's another disappointment. Super Bowl or bust. I actually already said that. So,
Well,
point being, I don't have a lot to complain about right now as a fan.
let's stay true to the segment. What can I clean up on my side of the street?
Right. Yeah. All right. So here we go. I've got the list. No, no, no. I don't think you have a lot. Honestly, I can't get past your view of the Bears offense. I think that you have rose-colored glasses for the Bears offense right now. Um, and I don't think that you're without reason for having optimism. I mean, certainly having what looks to be like your franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years will make anybody optimistic. Seeing some good quality O line play here and there, though I think that you gotta maybe see how that proceeds throughout the season. And then you got big optimism for your receiver room. Certainly Darnell Mooney, I have nothing to say about the optimism you have for that guy. He looks the part. Even Cole Kmet looks great, but I think that there's not much depth at all in either of those rooms, and so yeah. If anything, I would say that you have rose-colored glasses for your offense. We haven't really talked a whole lot about the Bears' defense aside from the Roquan Smith thing, and you've been a huge fan of Jaquan Brisker, but no criticisms there, man. I think that there's a lot to be seen. So, but yeah, big point: rose-colored glasses for your offense.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Um, I have to go back to the offense last year, right, and even the year before that, um, and the rose-colored glasses, I think, is more of a, you can say you didn't know where the hell the floor was with Matt Nagy's offense, right? I think
Yes, fair, man.
with a Luke Getsy offense, it's like, you know that the floor, right? You might not be able to point to it and say, well, it's going to be, you're going to have a 1,000-yard receiver, and you're going to have a 4,000 yard passer. You don't know if that's going to happen, but you knew that that wasn't going to happen with Matt Nagy, right? And what I would say is the wide receiver room today, and even for the 2022-23 season, it's not going to look like that next year, right? Like, we would be pressed if anybody beyond Darnell Mooney and Velus Jones is in that wide receiver room next year, right? They're all on 1-year deals. They're all flyers, right? And I think that I'm not extremely high on that wide receiver room, but I am higher on that group than the Packers group, right? And that's where I think I'm comfortable saying that, because I'm not necessarily saying like, hey, this group's better than the NFL or an NFL wide receiver group. Like, I would want this group. Like, no, I'm saying just there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of guys that have something to prove. There's a lot of guys with chips on their shoulders, and they're going to be held to a much higher standard than the Anthony Millers of the world, than the Javon Wims of the world, right? Like those guys, I don't even know if they'll make an NFL team, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, this group this year is a cornerstone to the future of the team, and I would be surprised if more than two of them are a part of that group next year. All right, and so I could see where maybe I'm not giving a whole lot of criticism for that. I think it's just like, as a fan, like you said, and I like to point to Seattle here, is they said this on the broadcast, is like, one thing about the Bears is, you could say, hey, at least they know who their franchise quarterback is. Let's not underscore that, right? Like, let's not underestimate how big that is, because we've never, and I've said this before, we've never had that. We've never gone into an NFL season and said that's the guy, right? Jay Cutler, he was the guy for that team. He was never the guy that was going to take you to the promised land, right?
He
And so
didn't
I
live up
think,
to it.
no,
Yeah.
he didn't live up. He did beat them Thanksgiving night in 2000, what was it, 15, with the worst Bears roster I think that's ever been on paper. I don't
It
know
was
how
2016 and I was
2016.
there.
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful.
I
I love
know.
that you
I
were
was there.
there. I love
I
that you
was
were there,
there.
because that was the worst Bears roster I have ever
Oh
seen.
man.
And by some turkey miracle, and you know a thing or two about the Turkey Bowl, Miles. You know a thing or
I
two
know a
about
thing or
Turkey
two.
Bowl miracles.
Miracles
Uh,
happen in the Turkey
they
Bowl.
they happen. They happen. And yeah, so Jay Cutler, just he wasn't cutting it. Um,
No. He is the fourth best quarterback in Packers history. Let it be
I'm
known.
sure. I'm sure of it. I'm sure you're not gonna get. I'm not dying on the Jay Cutler hill. No way. No way.
I'll
Uh,
have to share that story sometime though, because that's worth a segment. The ugly Thanksgiving loss to the Bears when Brett Favre was,
oh, we
I
spoiled
guess,
that night.
inducted. Yeah,
Oh
and
yeah.
his number it was his
And
number being retired. That's
you
what it
know what?
was.
For the sake of time, I won't do it. We'll revisit this next week. If you go, Miles, and you check out that Bears roster, it's even more of a miracle,
I'm not
because
gonna do it.
they
I
they
listen,
had
dude. When
no
you hear the
business.
story of that, you will not. That's me. I'm dead inside for that game. All right, you can't hurt me
Yes.
anymore for that. I am so dead
Yes.
inside, and it has
Oh,
it's everything around the game too. That's what I'm saying. It's full segment, dude. We will
yeah.
get into that. You will thoroughly enjoy it. I'm
So
sure.
I was actually in the Army at the time of this game, and that Thanksgiving, ended up seeing it at a Packer fan's house. We spent
Oh
Thanksgiving
wow.
together, and as you can imagine, I mean, this shit talking, and this was before a few beers, right? The shit talking was flying, and I, again, dead inside, I went into it. Oh, here it goes. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Whatever.
Bears in
Right.
prime time. You know what's going to happen. It's going to be disaster. And sure enough, just I don't know if the stars aligned to ruin Brett Favre's ceremony, but they pulled it off. They pulled it off with the worst roster I think I've ever seen.
Oh man, no, that was a very, very disappointing night for all Packer fans. I'm sure I just rehashed some PTSD for some of them.
Oh
But
man,
no, that
love to be
definitely we
able
need to
to.
bookmark that story.
This is a good segment. We definitely got to keep the street
Yeah.
clean.
And then, so just real quick to make sure that there's balance in the universe, we get to call out another team for keeping their side of the street clean. Do you have any? We came into this segment pretty much going off the cuff. Like, who would you like to call out for needing to clean up their side of the street? I think we should just leave Cleveland out of it. We already all know
Yeah.
that their street,
Gosh,
they're hopeless. We're not even gonna. You
gosh.
can't clean their street. You got to like
There's not enough time
destroy
in the
it and
world
rebuild
for
it, and
Cleveland.
yeah,
Well, let me do
no,
this. Let me go back because I was kicking myself last week. You kind of put me on the spot with the bandwagon situation, and I couldn't think of it. And then, of course, the moment we stopped recording, I'm like, oh, how could I not have
of
thought of this?
course.
The Los Angeles Rams. Biggest fan,
Ooh,
biggest
biggest bandwagon fans, no doubt.
bandwagon today. You asked me
Yeah,
who's the biggest bandwagon today. It's LA.
easily.
Like I think I had a little anecdote when I went to SoFi. Good anecdote. When I went to SoFi, I saw Justin Fields' first NFL touchdown on a rollout in the red zone. I think it was on the 10-yard line. He rolls out, runs it in, first NFL touchdown. I love to see that. I got an opportunity to tailgate at that week 1 Sunday Night Football matchup last season, and everybody's all decked out in their Rams gear and their Rams tailgate equipment, and get to talking. And I ask them, hey, Rams, they came back. Yeah, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm a Cowboys fan. It's like, oh my God, these people are just all in Rams gear, and they're all Cowboy fans. Um, all I'm saying, right? I might take some heat. All I'm saying is, you go to the lots at Soldier Field, nobody in orange and blue or blue and orange is any other team, right? They're not
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, I'm wearing the jersey, but yeah, I'm this fan or I'm that. No, hey, you're a Bears fan, right? So you could say the same thing about
yeah,
Lambeau,
yeah. It goes without
right?
saying with Lambo.
You're
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and that's what I'm saying is, to me, that's a bandwagon. And I get it. I get
definitely.
I get the geography, and I get the NFL history of, oh, the Rams were in LA and they moved to St. Louis, and we got them back, and it's like, okay, but you're a Cowboys fan, right? Well, let's call a spade a spade. You're not a you're rooting for the home team, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But I've never seen a more concentrated, besides going to AT&T Stadium, right? I've never seen a higher concentration of Cowboy fans than going to Week 1, LA versus Chicago.
You need to wait until next time the Cowboys come to LA, and then you'll have just this total circular loop of bandwagon fans not knowing who to root for. It's like
No,
ah,
well, I don't know if you saw, but the Cowboys played the Chargers in preseason this weekend, and
oh, that's right. Yeah, last night.
the entire stadium was all cowboyed out, right?
I believe it.
And the last thing I'll say here about Rams fans, God bless them, is if you want to piss off a Rams fan, right? Like, because their whole thing is like, whose house is this? Is it a Rams house? Okay, so
Oh, get out
I
of
would always take a
here.
deep breath, and I would just be like, Chargers house. And they would lose their shit. They would absolutely lose. No, they're paying rent. They're just paying rent here. This is Rams house. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that this is the Chargers house also.
If all I gotta say is this is the Chargers house and you get mad, they ain't paying rent, homie. They living rent free up
Rent
there.
free.
That is hilarious, man.
Rent free. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, you go to
Whose
Lambeau,
house is
no one
this?
else's
Oh
house.
my
You go to
gosh.
Soldiers Field, no one
No.
else's house. You go to SoFi. Eh,
Yeah. Uh, I
eh.
don't know, man.
Yeah, so I was
Who's
kicking myself
paying?
when
That's whose house it
when
is.
you asked me about who's the biggest bandwagon. Um,
Yeah.
They got their Super Bowl, but like you said, the salary cap isn't even a thing. I don't think for the Rams.
No,
Holy
no,
smokes!
the salary cap is non-existent. They just and so are draft picks. They don't care. Just hey, when it's like when you played franchise mode in Madden, those draft picks, those are just good for stacking your team right now, baby.
Is Madden paying you?
I hope so.
I mean, you bring him up more than anything else in this show.
Well, I'm a jaded millennial, man. I grew up with Madden, and by the way, John Madden, love the guy, nothing wrong with
Love him.
that. But the people making his game sometimes need to,
It's a cash grab.
yeah,
I mean, let's
they
call it what
need
it
to they
is.
need to be checked. It
Yeah.
is, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I have my criticism because I grew up loving that game. I can't remember. I think it was maybe Madden '95 was the first Madden that I remember. Maybe it was before that.
Well, Miles, I don't know if you and I think that parity is always best for games, right? And I think that when video games and football and sports simulation games, were at its best was when you had NFL Game Day, NFL Madden,
Oh
NFL
yeah.
2K, and they're just competing.
2K,
They're,
man.
they're competing for a slice of the pie, right? They're competing for video
Yes.
game sales. So there's more at stake today, right? With the licensing rights, I'll just EA knows all we got to do is come
Oh,
buy
they
the
know.
football game. Someone will buy it. All right,
Yep, they
someone will
know.
buy it. I mean, back in the day, you and I, like I say, we're the same age. You had Blitz, NFL Street, NFL
Oh,
Game
Blitz,
Day,
yes.
NFL 2K, EA Sports. I mean, it was
Yeah,
a dream come
there was a
true,
lot
and
of
you, and,
them.
and you could go out there and buy multiple games, right? And I think
I
the
did,
best
man. I
one
had
that
I had
ever,
Madden, I had 2K, I had Game Day. I got them all. I like to see the differences.
yeah, I remember Game Day just smashing the X button to get upfield, and I think the best football game that's ever been made, right? And I think this could be a poll. Was NFL 2K5, where they had
Is that
like Sports
TO on the
Center.
front?
Yeah, TO was on the front. I don't know if you remember this, but you could play first person, right? So you could be
Yep, I
lined up in
do.
a
And you had
position, and
your own crib?
yeah, and you could with accolades. Like I remember what I did is I had all of the I'm sorry, NFC North starting quarterbacks jerseys framed in my crib. So I had the Lions. I think it was Joy Harrington maybe at the time.
Yep.
I had Brett Favre. I had I don't know if it was
Dante
Culpepper.
Culpepper.
Yeah,
It had to have
Culpepper,
been
and then
Culpepper.
I don't know who the Bears starting quarterback was, and maybe Jim Miller. Yeah, I think I love Jim. Jim Miller was one of my favorite quarterbacks. But yeah, I just went on a tangent there with video games. But that one was, I think, the best football simulation game that was ever made. I think it was the first one where they had chants, like NFL Stadium chants that were in the game. I mean, they did a
Well, the first
beautiful
person
job.
view was revolutionary.
Game
That was
changer.
awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that should be our Twitter poll. And I know that hey, we've gone long, but that's all right, man. We're just gonna talk. We're fans. If y'all don't want to listen this long, you don't have to. Um, we should give you your W for this
Let's
last
take it.
Twitter
Let's
poll.
And you set yourself up
Um,
there, Miles. I want to be very explicit to the listeners. Right. You fired off, I think, like the last three polls. This one, the moment you hit send and it came up in my notifications, I checked it out. I said, "Oh, geez, I think Miles is in for a treat here." And I think you positioned it, hey, in lieu of or in honor of, Aaron Rodgers coming out to, and I think this is pretty cool. The
yeah,
music in the golf cart.
I love the
Um,
golf cart, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those things can go pretty quick. You gotta be careful
It,
if you're
it's
riding.
kind of cool, man.
No, yeah. I'm not saying it's not cool, um,
I don't know.
but
So there's several people who said Aaron Rodgers has never been cool. And it's like, all right, well, listen, I know the guy's weird, but
and I had nothing
he's
to do
kind of
with that.
cool.
I had
No, you
absolutely
didn't. You're right.
nothing. You stirred up a hornet's nest on your own.
Yeah,
Well, let's see
I do
here.
that every now and then.
You tend to do that. Let's see here. Um, so the poll for those listening at home, in light of recent events, Rogers bumping Colt 45 in his golf cart on the way to practice, which quarterback is cooler, Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields? This one, because you called out Bears Twitter, which I was cracking up
I
at. This
did.
one I had nothing to do with it. Justin Fields 63% to Aaron Rodgers 37.
Yeah, I think you guys got a couple of troll votes in there too. People who just cannot stand Aaron Rodgers and just ready to vote against him.
It's not my fault.
Uh,
It's not my.
no,
You
I
set that
did.
one
I
up.
tossed up kind of a softball. I felt bad last week. You lost the poll 91% to
You
9,
didn't
so
feel.
I had
You
to
didn't
throw.
feel bad. You did feel bad. You thought you were gonna get the Colt 45 edge there.
I thought
Yeah,
I had a slight chance, and I mean, to be honest,
that's ballsy, man. That's
63% to
ballsy. The
37%. I
the
think it could
off
have been
season where
worse.
he comes in with that tattoo, you're gonna ask if he's cool. That's the lamest tattoo on the face of the planet.
And his entrances to the last two preseason games have been kind of kooky
Oh,
as well.
jeez.
He's going for the full spiritual thing. Hey, power
Good
to
for
him. As
him.
long as he
Good
goes
for
off and wins
him.
a Super Bowl and another MVP, I don't care what he's getting
Yeah.
tattooed on his arm.
He needs to go on a
Um,
retreat and just retire. One of those like he needs to go find himself.
Honestly, I think if they here you go for more receipts. If they win a Super Bowl this year, I think Aaron Rodgers retires.
Okay. Uh,
I think he chooses to ride off into the sunset. I think that's the path he's looking for.
all right. I got nothing because I don't necessarily agree with this is a Super Bowl
Just a
year,
prediction.
but it's yeah. I mean,
No, but not to say that like that's a double down on my Super Bowl prediction, but I feel very confident that if they win a Super Bowl, he will walk away.
an if then
Um,
model. If the Super Bowl
yeah,
is won, then Aaron Rodgers is a
with
retiree.
almost certain like full certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's out.
What if he pulls a Favre and he goes to the Minnesota Vikings?
I don't think he wants to because think about what he said this offseason. He said, "I'm for sure going to retire a Packer." He did say that. And another thing that he has changed his tune on now because somebody asked him about Tom Brady and I don't know if he's 45 or something, whatever he is. So he said, "Are you going to play till that long?" And he said definitively no. So he's not even trying to chase longevity at this point. Because there was a point in time that I think his attitude was, however long Tom plays, I'm going one more.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and surpass that. I don't think he's there anymore. I think he at
Yeah.
this point is like, let me get my other ring. Let's solidify
Yeah.
this thing and ride off into the sunset. So we'll see.
Psychedelic
But
drugs, man, they change a man.
they will, yeah.
I
Even the
saw
more mild ones.
I saw a I saw a statistic that was a knee slapper. Um, Cade McNown, same age as Tom Brady.
No way.
Ain't that nuts?
Well, listen,
Oh,
hey,
shout out to UCLA and Cade McNown puking in the middle of a game. In the middle of a game, yeah, I mean that puts it in perspective of Tom Brady's
yeah.
just brilliant career.
Well, we were in third grade, I believe, when he was drafted.
Jeez,
The
yeah,
third or
I mean,
fourth
I
grade.
remember Drew Bledsoe. There were Drew Bledsoe jerseys all over the place, all
Drew
over the place.
Bledsoe.
Drew
Tom
Bledsoe.
Brady replaced Drew Bledsoe. Y'all, Drew Bledsoe stopped playing like 20 years ago.
Yeah, he stopped playing because of Tom Brady.
Yeah,
I think
that's just
I think he
nuts.
went to like maybe one other team.
He went to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean
Play
Drew
with
Bledsoe,
Parcells, man.
and I think for the younger generation, right? Like Drew Bledsoe wasn't a scrub by any means. Like
No.
he was a NFL quarterback,
Well, he
and
took him to the Super Bowl in '96 and got beat by the Packers.
yep. And Tom
Fun
Brady,
fact.
six rounder, and Tom Brady's draft picture. I mean, that's Hall of Fame material
Classic, man.
right
That's
there.
why I insist that Mac Jones will win more championships than Tom Brady because his dad bod is worse than Tom Brady's dad bod. I don't
It's
know if
not
you
hard.
noticed
It's
that.
not hard. It's not hard to do.
Quite soft.
Oh man, we really do. We really do give New England quite a bit of airtime, huh?
Yeah, well, they've earned it.
Yeah, they
They've
sure
done some
have.
impressive things in football, some less impressive things. It's all the same. Shoot, man, we've definitely taken it long. What are we jumping in here to close us out? Are we looking forward to any cut downs? Do we have any insights on fantasy football? What do we want to throw in as our last 5 minutes here?
Yeah, I would say with I think cuts. There's going to be cuts that are due by Tuesday. One preseason game left. Starters projected to go maybe a half, right? And I think this is just where you're holding your breath as a fan and just like, gosh, just please make it to week one
Stay healthy.
healthy. Yeah, stay
Yep.
healthy. Um, yeah, I'd say let's maybe shelf some of the cut. I think next week will be a good cut episode, right? Because it's going to be shaped up. You're going to have a better sense as a fan of who's going to be on the squad, who's not. And then fantasy drafts. Are you doing one this year?
I have two.
All
So
right.
one, I'm not sure where the date. I think it's one of the days this week, and then the other is next Saturday. So yeah, two fantasy drafts coming up. I've been doing a little bit of digging in, a little bit of polling the crowd with some of my other buddies that are doing fantasy drafts. So we're
Yep.
starting to get our thoughts together with who you going after, who's off your radar, all that. What about you? You got any drafts coming up?
Yeah, I'm doing one Monday. Monday,
Okay.
September 3rd. So really like the last minute draft, just that best practice of getting a draft after all of the preseason, changes or cuts or injuries that you might not have been tracking. I know some guys they draft early. They draft
I
super
just
early, and
I don't
I never have
understand
been on
that.
that train. Yeah.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. It's just not a
Although
smart
I've
move,
been,
man.
I mean, it's one of those where it's like I've been snake bitten many times drafting. In my first round draft pick is like it was Saquon last year. I drafted Saquon Barkley, um, and then he just like had a quad injury like week one that put him out the whole year. I
Yep.
mean that like at that point, if you're winning, if you're making it to the playoffs with your first with your first pick, essentially just off the team, uh, man, that's
I
something. But
actually did that one time.
did
I
you
actually won a league
caught light?
after I
Oh, geez, I was gonna
lost
say
my
caught
first
lightning in a
overall
bottle.
pick. Yep, I did.
Wow.
That was several years ago. I can't remember who it was, but it was thanks to a lower round running back. I wish I could
Yeah,
remember who it was, but it was like an Alvin Kamara type guy who before anybody knew about him, he was a nobody and
that's how it
all that. I'm
happens.
not sure if it was him or not. Yeah, but
That's how it
that's exactly
happens.
what happened. Is I drafted first overall. He got hurt, but I think I had like two guys in the later rounds that ended up being studs. So yeah, you just never know. You never know with these
Well,
things.
a nice little football fantasy anecdote. You and I had a nice little trade back in the day. I think it was 2019. I drafted Devontae, I think, in the second round, and I tried to flip Devontae for Antonio Brown and a running back. I can't remember the running back that was included, but it was RB1, I think.
Yeah.
And you were like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger." We pulled the trigger, and I was pumped because I was like, "Dude, at this point, Antonio Brown had just been traded to New England.
Yep.
He had just gone through his like breakdown with the Raiders where he calls his grandma and he's all happy that he got, he's like, I'm traded, I'm cut, whatever. And I'm like, dude, he's going to New England. Like, he's going to put up some numbers. And then
Yep.
I think like a week later, like his sexual abuse or something happened, something stupid hit the headlines. And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. Here we go. And then sure enough, Devontae goes off out of his mind. And I had to stash AB on the bench because he was he was cut by the Patriots because the Patriots don't
Yeah, he didn't
play.
play the rest of that season.
That's
No.
one thing that I respect about the Patriots. They're not the Browns. They
No.
don't play.
No. They don't mess around. They don't want any
Yeah,
of that attention.
yeah.
No, man,
Well,
I do remember that. I remember that was one of the only fantasy trades I've ever made, and I honestly felt bad. I felt bad, dude.
well,
You got raked over the coals in that trade.
I will say this for anybody listening, fantasy guys. I always say this, and I say nobody on the team because I know a lot of guys go like, "No, that guy's untouchable. No, that guy's untouchable." You know me. I'm like, yeah, there's a deal to be made. I mean, let's
There's
talk,
yeah.
right? Let's talk. Let's talk. But yeah, I think we have gone a little bit long. We're right at the 2 hour mark. I'll say this little tip for fans at home. I always put it on 1.75, and it's good. It's good. The 1.75 speed. I
There
I
you
I
go,
I
and you'll be
I
through it before you
fly
know it.
through these. Yeah.
I'll say I've never been part of the fast forward crew. I haven't gotten into that. There's something about tone that I enjoy, but if it's gonna get you guys to listen and get through one of these episodes, by all means, do the
And
one and a
keep
half,
calling
do the
us out.
1.75. Keep calling us out. We need it,
Keep
man. Y'all are
calling
making
us
us
out.
better,
Yeah.
for
Let's see
sure.
if maybe we can get somebody to do a guest appearance and represent maybe their fan base here before we go into the season, because I think between week 1 and week 2 we're going to be wanting to just concentrate on the Bears Packers Sunday Night Football
Oh
matchup.
man,
So let's
we
get
got to
somebody.
plan something special for that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to Lambeau.
Right on. Let's do it. Here we go.
Let's do it.
No,
You heard it here first.
I think there's a certain Cowboys fan that I might be able to motivate to come on here.
Oh yeah.
And that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, I certainly we welcome all the feedback, y'all. Thank you for listening this far in. If you're still with us, appreciate you taking the ride. If you enjoyed it, spike that like button. Leave us a comment down in the comment section. Let us know what you liked or what we need to do better or what we should talk about next time or where we need to be called out. We love it. Let's do it. Share it. Subscribe. All the things that help the social media algorithms and help you know when we're coming out with a new episode. Um, Episode today brought to you guys by Life Leaf Remedies. We want y'all to feel better today. We're working on making all sorts of effective natural remedies that we want to share with you guys. And right now, through the end of August, every order with a subscription comes with a free sample of our immune armor capsules right here. Get a free bottle of these bad boys in your box whenever you subscribe. Cancel anytime. You're in control of that. Don't worry. We're not trying to get you trapped into anything. You can subscribe immediately, get your 10% discount, get you some free shipping, get a free gift, and then cancel tomorrow. You're not going to hurt my feelings because you're still going to get some amazing products, amazing natural remedies. You're going to love them and you're going to want to come back. So it's all good. And feel better today, y'all. That's all we've got. That's all I've got. Again, thank y'all so much for listening this far and giving me and Miguel something to talk about here on a weekly basis. And as always, go pack, go.
Bear down. I got a bonus dad joke for those that stuck around, because as we know, there's natural
Yes.
vitamins, minerals, and fungi in Life Leaf Remedies, and we're big advocates for all things natural. So Miles, I got one for you. So uh,
Yes. I
a
love dad
mushroom
jokes.
goes out on a date, right? Everything in his mind, it went very well. He comes back. He tells his buddy, "Hey, I went on a date. It went really well." Next week, his buddy sees him. He goes, "Hey, how'd it go?" And he's kicking himself, head down. I don't know, man. She hasn't called me back. I haven't heard from her, and I don't know why. I mean, I'm a fun guy. It's late. It's late Sunday evening. It was a beautiful show. If you
It is
stuck
early
around, you got
Monday
the.
morning.
Oh, it's early Monday morning. We got the time zones. But I had that bonus dad joke if you stuck around.
I
And as
love it.
always, bear down.
Oh, I love it. I love a good dad joke. Go, Pack, go. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for
Bye,
sticking
y'all.
around, y'all.